Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to tonight's craft and chill, I should say. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. I'm still working on my new streaming setup, but I think this is gonna work. So you guys are in for a real treat though, because not only do I have just, me and talking head space, but I actually have this set up so that you can see the desk that I'm gonna be working on, as well as my laser cutter. I got 3 cameras running tonight. That plus my screen sharing. So hopefully that'll work. As always, I'm always a little nervous when I'm doing this live because I'm not used to talking without that editing element. So if you guys can't hear me or if there's, anything sounds off, I do have the laser running in the background. So by all means, let me know. As well as feel free to ask questions about the project that I'm working on tonight. So without further ado, let's get started. So recently I did a video where I showed you guys how to do this concept called acrylic welding, which is where you are essentially gluing 2 pieces of acrylic together by using the heat of the laser. So the 2 pieces of acrylic are on top of each other in the machine, and as you're cutting through them, you're getting sort of this micro melting, and it's causing the pieces to basically sort of fuse together. So, and it definitely is sort of a game changer depending on what you need to do if you're trying to connect certain pieces or maybe cut signs with additional layers and all of that. So, with that being said, I started kind of playing around with different ideas, and somebody in my comments had mentioned the concept of doing like shakers where they're sort of filled with things. And funny enough, my husband actually made that same suggestion when I showed him the technique. He's like, you could do multiple layers. And he's like, could you even like fill it with water or something like that? And the short answer to that is it doesn't seem like it's exactly waterproof when you do this. I was playing around with some different cuts recently, and I did one last night, and I did this at a very sort of slow and hot kind of laser cut, if you will. So this was run pretty slow. I think I ran it at about 4 millimeters a second. Or yeah, I think that's what 4 millimeters a second I ran it that slow, but then I ran it at like 80% power, and it gave me a really nice smooth cut. This fused beautifully. Was able to get all 3 layers done with the little inside fillings put in with no problem. But then I did run this underwater, and I still ended up with some water droplets inside. It took them a little bit to dry, and the little pieces weren't wanting to shake around with that water in there. But now that it's dried, they move around. It's pretty. But so the short answer is no, this doesn't seem to form a watertight seal. So if you're wanting to try and do this and fill it with something, I think you're going to need to find some sort of sealant that you still apply on the outside. Although personally, I'm just a little nervous to put a liquid inside a set of layers of acrylic and then putting that in the machine. To me, that just bothers me just a little bit. It's a little outside my threshold of things I want to experiment with. But that being said, it doesn't mean you can't make some of these really cool shakers that are empty. Well, not filled with fluid, but still have, little hearts or stars, whatever you want to do. So, and that is what I'm going to show you guys how to do tonight. So specifically, I'm going to show you guys how to create this design that I made. Little Boba Cat tee. Yep, there you go. See? Isn't it cute? He's so cute. So this is 3 layers of acrylic. As you can see, there's 2 transparent layers of 1.5 millimeter, and then the middle one is just your standard 3 millimeter acrylic, which translates to 1/8 and 1/16 acrylic if you want to use imperial measurements. And then inside these, I just have these fake sprinkles. That's kind of what I think what they're called. I just got a bottle of them at the store and filled it. You could also do things like glitter or, I don't know, maybe really tiny seed beads, whatever you want to put in there. And then I also have the top layer engraved, but I flipped it so the engraving is actually inside. So I'm going to show you guys how to set this up, as well as a little bit of the concept behind the design. That way, if you want to create your own designs using this technique, you'll have a decent idea about how you go about doing that. So let me take you over to Lightburn where I have this file created. So, oops. There we go. Told you, you can see my desk. So here we go. So this is Lightburn all set up. And as you can see, I have multiple layers here. And this looks a little confusing, but it's really not. So what I've done is I've set this up so that I can kind of create the design, and then I have each cut separated out into a layer so that as I want to cut each layer, I can kind of turn them on and off. Lightburn lets you set the output and then the show as well. So output means this is actually the layer that's being outputted. This is the one that's being burnt at that time. And then show is just whether or not it's going to show up on your grid. So if this is too much information, you could always turn everything off like that, or you can leave them on. But even if you leave them on, if the output is not on, then you are not going to see them whatsoever. So when I have my layers labeled just to kind of make things easier to understand. So the first layer that I have set up is what I call the template blocks. And these are basically for cutting blocks of acrylic that I can then use when I'm cutting this design. And the idea behind this was we want everything to line up really nice and neat. So you kind of want to, it's almost sort of like setting up a jig, if you will. That way everything sort of stays in place and you don't have to worry about trying to line things up with a camera, which if you have a Dookie Cloud or some of the other machines where the camera just isn't really ideal for that lineup, it helps to go ahead and have this set up. In fact, I actually have a small piece of acrylic that I have cut out that, here, I'll show you guys. Oops. Here we go. Maybe. If I come back over here. Now I know why people get Stream Deck, so they can just press a button. Anyway, this is my jig. So I put this in my laser cutter, and I have it labeled so that I know that this is 50 millimeters, and I know this is 35. So I set this in my corner. That way, when I go to put the pieces of acrylic that I'm working with, it slides right up into this corner, and I know they're all going to be lined up, and I don't have to worry about framing. I know that they're all going to be in the same place. This is a nice little tool to have. Honestly, this was made, I think, with a scrap piece that I had. In fact, I think I just even like measured it and happened to get lucky, and it was like, oh, 50 and 35. I also like the fact that it's got 50 millimeters because if I'm doing any engraving with the laser, you're going to want that extra space for the laser to kind of sort of go past when it's going back and forth for an engraving. So you definitely need there to be room. You can't set an engraving up all the way against the far side of your laser plate. It does not work. You need to kind of provide yourself with some room. And usually for me, the 50 millimeters is enough to work without any problems. So good little tool to have. And that's kind of why you'll see here on this file why I've got things lined up the way I do. So that's why this is here. And this, you'll see this dotted orange line. This is a tool layer. This actually is not a cut layer. This is just a guide layer. So this is set up to basically show me where my little acrylic blocks are going to sit. That way I know the design sits directly in the middle of the blocks. Now, like I said, I have the template blocks here. So this gray layer here, let me turn off the others real quick so that make things easier to see. I'll even turn off the frame. So this first layer here just cuts out the blocks of acrylic in this template shape that you need. This at the moment is set to cut at my typical like 1.5 millimeter acrylic, but for speed and power, I will go in and change and pick whatever thickness I need. And if these numbers look a little weird, that's because with the Dookie Cloud, you have to like subtract from your focal length of your lens. I know in the updates, apparently you can put the material thickness in, but I also heard some people were having some problems with that, so I haven't bothered to do the update. So that's why I have a focal lens length of 20.1. So 20.1 minus 1.5 gets me 18.6, or minus 3, you get the 17. You get the idea. It just makes life easier. I can like click and assign. But anyway, these template blocks are set up to the size that I need my little my template box to be, and I actually have it set up in a virtual array, which you can use over here. This lets me say, hey, I want to cut, 3 or 4 squares at this size, and it will draw that for me. As a virtual array, these are sort of, they don't exist as separate shapes. I can just control the one and it will create more. If I didn't want that and I wanted them to be actual ones that I can move around, I can turn off virtual array. But either way, they're there. So that's your first layer, is this layer where you cut out your template blocks. And typically you'll do that in your clear acrylic, and then you'll also do that in the thicker 3mm acrylic. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll turn that one off. And then I'm going to turn on all of my little shapes. So now you see you've got, I will zoom in, not that far. There we go. So I'll zoom in to show you. So this is my cute little Boba Cat tee design that I did. And it's got multiple layers here. So each layer is kind of explained here on my little sort of side thing. So I have this blue layer set up, and this blue layer cuts what would be the inside of whatever middle color layer that I'm doing. So if you were to look at the design, flip back over here. There we go. If you were to look at this design here, you can see how you've got all these shapes in the middle, this shape, these shapes, all of these. These are the ones that are going to be cut first. And the reasoning for that is that I don't need these to weld to any other material. I need these just kind of cut out to create my space, essentially. So that's what that first layer is doing. That first layer is going in and cutting all of that out. Then the next layer, which is the middle and the bottom, which is in this red, is this big red shape here. Let me turn this off a second to make this red shape here. And this is going to cut and weld the bottom layer, the bottom clear layer, to the middle acrylic layer. And that's going to create a sealed bottom, if you will, so that those two layers are connected. And then I have the top layer, which you'll see here in the yellow. If I do, yep, that one. If you right click it, it'll show you it on Lightburn. So that layer is when I have all 3 layers together and I'm doing the weld cut, and it's in slightly so that it comes in a little bit and creates a full cut all the way through the 3 layers. Now you might be wondering, why not just cut all 3 layers at once and, avoid doing the second step? And you could do that. Certainly could do that if you wanted. This just kind of, to me, makes it a little easier, because when I go to put like the little sprinkles in or something, I know that the bottom that I'm putting into, I've created this little space in the middle. I know that things aren't necessarily going to move around, but it isn't necessarily necessary if you're going to weld all 3 layers together. If you don't have a ability to weld all 3 layers successfully, if you're having problems with that, like you can't get your settings correctly, or if there's another method that you want to use, then you can also sort of use this additional layer to kind of cut out some 3M sticky paper and put it on that layer as well. So Ruthless, I am working with a Juiki Cloud 55 watt CO2 laser. So I have a CO2 laser, so I can cut through any color of acrylic. If you have a diode laser, you're not going to be able to cut through certain colors, clear being one of them. So, but that is the machine that I have. And then the other layer that I have here is the engraving design. And you'll notice that I have this mirrored, and that's because what I typically like to do is I like to put the engraving on the inside. So I will actually flip that layer when I go to put it down in the laser cutter. So that's kind of what this file looks like. And I've got these speeds. These are set to what work for my machine. You're going to have to probably play with this with your machine You may have to tweak things a little bit. I can tell you that with the acrylic welding, it is better to go slow and hotter. Like, I definitely found that slowing down and using a much faster power seems to work a little better when you're trying to get that nice acrylic weld. But so at least that's my experience. So I'm going to kind of show you guys, you know, cutting through this piece. I've got things set up. The only thing that I have done ahead of time, and I'm going to show you here on my, there we go, show you on my desktop here, is I have gone ahead and, this was another piece, I have gone ahead and just done the engraving ahead of time just to sort of save a little time. That way we're not staring at the machine that long. So let's get started. So I'm going to start with doing the first, I've already got my template blocks cut, as you can see, some spare pieces. I'm going to start then with step one, which is to cut the middle section out. So I'm going to do that with this piece of blue. I've got it masked on both sides. So I'm going to stick that over in the laser and we're going to run that cut. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. My laser's not too loud. So if it is, because I think what I'll do is I'll probably mute my mic while it's actually running just so we don't have too much extra noise. So, but I'm going to put this in the machine. And then I am going to make sure I've got everything set up real quick here. I'm going to do the middle cut. So that's going to be my output. So the blue one, you'll notice it gets a little darker when you select it as the output. So that's going to be my output. I have this set to 1455. The only thing I need to do is change my material thickness. So I'm going to go ahead and just move this to 17.1 since I know I'm putting 3mm in. All right. So let's go over to the laser and drop this one in. And I'm going to flip you over to my laser camera. Maybe I keep forgetting to change apps when I flip over. Haha. All right, so that would be my laser cutter. So jig is going in. The acrylic's lined up. I've turned the fan on. And now I'm going to run the cut. All right. Okay. So that cut pretty well. Get my little pieces out of here. Pokey, pokey, pokey. Little ears like to cling in, but everything cut pretty good. All right. So now step two for this is going to be setting it up for the second round of cutting, and that's going to be getting the back, which is this clear layer here. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to start by giving myself a little more room. Everybody else messy like me with projects? All right. So to do this, you're going to definitely want to remove backing, obviously, because it will get sealed in the middle. So I'm going to pull off the backing of this 1.5mm clear, and then I'm going to pull the backing off of this one. There we go. Yay! Am I gonna get it all off in one piece? I am. Woohoo! Got a little bit of flaring from when it was cut earlier, but that shouldn't affect things. All right. So now the trick with this is to make sure that everything is lined up, particularly to that corner. And then I usually will secure it, honestly, just with using some masking tape. I feel like this helps just kind of keep the pieces pressed together, and as a result, I think gives a better result. Usually what I do is I try to kind of secure the opposite sides to my corner just to minimize and make sure everything's lined up. So there's one. At the corner there. And there's two. All right. Cool. All right. So now this is all set to go into the machine, and it's going to do that bigger cut. So what I'm gonna go ahead and head back over here to my screen share. So now I'm going to do this weld the middle and the bottom. So I'm gonna turn the blue output off. I'm gonna turn the red output on. So it's gonna make this big old cut around to kind of sort of secure the pieces. And then once I've done this, I will typically remove the backing on the top of the acrylic, and then I will add an additional layer. And honestly, usually I do that over in the machine once I do that, just to kind of keep things sort of lined up. So I'm going to flip over to my laser camera, and I will show you guys kind of how this goes. All right. All right, so that's secure. So one final thing I do need to do is I do need to adjust my thickness. So for this, I need to go down another 1.5, so that's 15.7. And again, that's, just kind of how my machine works. It's wacky. You have to work backwards, but it's okay. All right, and then I already kind of have the cut settings in that work. And it's set to output, so we should be good. So let's hit start, and I'll flip over to the cut, and I'll flip over to the laser camera real quick. So that turned out nice. So now I'm going to need to add this layer here on top of it, as well as go over and fill it. I'm going to fill it with some of these, which I just got from Michael's. They're essentially, like I said, kind of fake sprinkles. So not real ones, but fake ones made with clay. And then I have the sheet that I already did, and I engraved it earlier just for the sake of time. So I'm going to pull the backing off of this really quickly before I take it over to the machine. And then get that one little extra part. And I'll make sure I don't forget that. It's these tiny little eyes. Otherwise, I'm going to get it done, and it's going to be like there's these itty bitty little pieces of backing in them. Did I get it? Yep. Yep, I got it. Okay. So we are all set to go in. So I'm going to flip over to the laser camera. You guys may not be able to hear me because I'm going to step out of range. But I'm going to go over there. I'm going to peel the backing off of the middle layer. And I'm going to add in the sprinkles. And then I'm going to carefully secure this one on top of it. Okay? So let's go over there. Okay. All right. So I've gone beyond probably what I need to with securing it, but I do it just out of habit. There we go. Oh, look, maybe. So as you can see here, I've got it secured on top. I have the paper cover layer removed from the inside of the bottom one because that's all that's going to get cut. And then I also have the backing taken off of that top layer, which was engraved earlier. So now we're going to do the final cut, if you will, which should hopefully secure all of them together. So if I go back over here to my desktop here, we're now going to flip over. We're going to weld all 3 layers, and that is going to be this line here. So this one, as you can see, kind of cuts just inside that bigger space, and it's going to create a little hole so that it can be a keychain. So, and I have got this set. Like I said, I'm kind of going slow and hot with this, and I just need to adjust because I've added one more layer of 1.5, so this goes down to 14.2 the way my machine works. And now we are all set to go, so I'm going to send this to run. And here we go. Alrighty. So now the final reveal. So that went pretty well. Had a bit of a pop while it was flaring, so it must have hit something underneath. Always scary when that happens. But that's also why you never leave your laser unattended. Alrighty. So this feels like it's cooling pretty well. I'm always like to kind of let it rest for a second before I peel and pull everything off, just to make sure it kind of, you know, the acrylic that's gotten hot and is melted and is curing has, like, you know, had a moment to sit. So I'm gonna let that sit there for a second. So alternatives, if, you know, for some reason you're having trouble doing the acrylic welding or you don't want to do this, how would be an alternative to play with this design. And what you could do is you can use some of this. This is called 3M adhesive. This is really good. It's super thin. It's super durable. What you can do is you can actually just kind of throw this onto the acrylic that you're working with. Like the middle layer one, you could put a piece on both sides and then cut it, because the laser will then cut through this, so that you'll have adhesive on both sides. And then you can basically just cut 2 of the clear layers and then assemble that way. And it'll still look pretty nice. You just might see the adhesive a little bit, but it's not super obvious. I mean, it's clear, you know, it looks pretty nice. But that will also give you, you know, I mean, this stuff is really sturdy. I have stuck acrylic together with this and have not been able to get it apart. It is a real pain in the butt. This is usually how I make my ornaments, because I do ornaments where I have like a full layer and then I have a layer on top that I engrave and all of that. So this stuff works really well for that. So I think this is cooled enough. All right, so now time to weed. Okay. There we go. All right. Now, I'm guessing based on this, I was not paying attention to the lineup with my little engraving, because it does look like it did not line up as well as it should, but it works. It's sealed. And now you've got a little shaker. And this gives a really nice, when you go slow and hot, you get a really nice smooth edge. But this is, yeah, this is sturdy. This isn't, yeah, this looks like it held. Doesn't look like it's coming off. So very cool. So yeah, so that's how you make one of these. So like I said, pretty easy to do once you kind of have an idea of how the file works and once you have your laser settings in correctly. And again, sometimes it's trial and error. Like I just, you know, showed, like my engraving design is unfortunately off a little bit, as frustrating as that is, but I mean, that does happen. So I'll have to take a look and make sure I've got things lined up better, at least with the engraving pattern. But otherwise it works really well. So I will share this file with all of you guys if you want. At the very least, you can use it as a template to kind of set up and create your own designs. It'll give you, you know, sort of this shape, you know, and how you do the different layers. And then if you wanted, you know, the cute to make yourself your own little cup, you can. Otherwise, you can sort of import your own design. They're fairly easy to do. What I can do is I can show you guys how to go ahead and sort of set up the design if you are wanting to sort of create your own, if this seems a little confusing. So let me flip back over to my, yeah, there we go. Let me flip back over to screen share land for a moment. So you guys can see me. So imagine, so let's say for a moment, there we go. I'm going to, let's just make this easy. Say for a moment, I'm going to make myself a little square. I'm going to draw that. Oh, that might be why. I have it on the wrong layer. I have it on the template layer. So say this is I want to make a shaker that's square in shape. And maybe I want the inside, I'll flip it over to blue for a second. Maybe I want some nice rounded corners so it doesn't look too weird. And so, I want a shaker that's about a square in shape, and I want it to have a little bit of a border. So what you can do is you can offset. So I'm going to go in, give it an offset of like maybe 4 millimeters thickness. Probably don't even have to be that much. You can do 3 millimeters. So, okay. Don't delete the original objects. You want to leave that previous line. So this gives me my shape for my shaker, essentially, is I want this, everything in here is going to be filled, and, this will be the shape that it's cut to. So in a sense, this is going to be the inside cut. This is what's going to be on blue. This outside line here is what I want the final shape to be. So that's where I want all 3 layers to be welded. So this outside shape, I want to set to this yellow color, and I can do that by just tapping the 4 down here. So if I'm wanting to try and kind of do the technique I did where I had the, weld 2 and then weld the one after that. Oh, you're welcome, Nick Kitty. I'm going to want to add that additional layer where we've got this additional cut here. So this is, again, just kind of playing with the offset. So I'm going to offset this, but this time I'm going to go outward. And that gives me that extra station. Again, about 3 to 4 will give you pretty good. So I'm going to go outward again. I want to keep all the original shapes. And then this outward line I'm going to set to the red. So that's essentially how I'm going to set up for cutting this shape. If I wanted to create a design inside, for instance, let's say, let me go in here and let me separate these shapes out and say I just want, like, I want to copy the face. Duplicate the face. Let's bring the face over. It's all cute. We'll rotate it, 90 degrees, put it in the center. There we go. I think that's all a group. Yep, that's all a group. So I can take all of these and then I can essentially just sort of center them. There we go. And then maybe move this down a little bit. Yep, there we go. A little more kawaii that way. Okay. So now I've got this design and I've got the engrave here. So the only thing then I would really need to do then when I'm doing this is that if you want this design to be on the inside, you're going to want to mirror it. So just flip it that way. With this, it's not going to make a huge difference other than, which color or which way the pupils are looking. But then I can mirror that so that when I go to run that top layer as an engraving, it'll be reversed and you'll flip it down. So that essentially is how you would then set up that shape to go in here. And then all it really is a matter of, I'm going to pull my little guy off and then putting your shape into your template box. And if you're wanting to try and optimize material usage, you can obviously turn your template box down. I could shrink my template shape down, say I really just want, like, give just that much space. And then what's kind of nice is because this is on a tool layer, I can actually click this layer here and it will kind of sort of snap a little bit, or it's at least pretty easy to line up to my tool layer. There we go. So now I've got that shape, and then I'll be able to just drag that up. And because this is a virtual array, it's still going to cut those 3 shapes. If I go over here and I set it to, 0, 0, so it cuts at the top of the board. And then there you have it. This is all completely set up for a brand new design. Simple, quick, and easy to do. So I'm going to get this set up. I'm going to set it on my Gumroad. I think I have it available. No, I need to finish getting it uploaded. So, but I will go ahead and do you guys want me to pop it into my Dropbox and send it and kind of set up a chat link or put the link in the chat? I can do that. Let me flip over. Let me flip over here real quick. So you see me versus my desktop while I'm doing this. Let's see here. So I'm going to grab, I will drop this off in my Dropbox in my public folder. All right. There we go. And I'm going to copy the Dropbox link. All right. Here you guys go. That's the link to it. I know, that's a really long link. Let me see if I can take a moment and bit.ly that really quick. Mm-hmm. All right. That's a little better. Not as long anyway. Okay. So that's pretty much all I have for you guys with this project. I thought, you know, it was just kind of a cute little addition and a neat way to play around with the acrylic welding. So I'm trying to think if there's any other pearls or suggestions that I have for this. Definitely have your laser venting with this. I definitely noticed the acrylic seems to smell much worse when I'm cutting through multiple layers. I don't know if it's just the gluing process or what, but I definitely know that it does stink more. Not messy, but unorganized clutter. Yes, I am organized clutter in here. So, any other questions, guys? Things I can help with? I'm also going to turn the laser off real quick. Ugh, because it's loud, in my opinion. Oh, so much better. So let's see if there's. Did you send this earlier when you asked? I'm not sure what you mean. I have I shared the link up above, which is the file that I created, or this Lightburn file. So it is set up. I'm going to also set it up on Gumroad with just the SVG, if you will. For if you guys are like working in Glowforge, I have no experience there, but I know you can't pull Lightburn files over, but you can pull SVG files. So I'm hoping the exported version of that will have all the colors and the instructions, and that'll help a little bit with that. Yes, acrylic always smells when cutting. I feel like it's a little bit worse when you're cutting through multiple layers. I don't know why, but it's like usually I can control the smell with my little high-powered vent flow air thingy. I don't know what to call it, but usually the vent or my little air purifier does a little better job, but I feel like I really can smell it with the acrylic welding. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I do have a Discord that I've set up to kind of just sort of set up a community. It's brand new at this point, so it's a little on the empty side. I'm going to slowly add more content. I'm also, I think, going to set it up so that anybody can join, but then if you want to have access to some of these laser files and designs, then I'm going to kind of put those sort of behind just a very small paywall, just kind of help support the channel. But otherwise, I think that's pretty much everything tonight. It's a shorter stream, but I wanted to kind of create this project and I wanted to sort of do it live just so I could answer any questions or if there was anything you guys wanted to see, as well as you can see that, you still have to you can still make mistakes and still, troubleshoot things. So, but that's all I have for tonight. So I hope you guys enjoy your Friday. Thanks for coming and hanging out. I hope you guys liked the little 3-camera setup. I think this worked really well. I was all excited. I was like, yeah, you can see my desk, you can see me, and you can see the laser without burning your retinas. Although the cover is more than sufficient. All right. Well, have a good night, guys. Bye.